back to the Girly Girl Bookworm. So today I have my favorite books for the first half of 2021. So what I did was I went through every single month and I picked my top 1 to 2 to 3 favorite books of each month. Some months I felt like it was harder to pick than others, so that's why I wanted to at least pick like 1 or 2. Figured like at the end of the year I always end up with these like stacks of like 20 favorites, so I figured I would do one for the first half and then I will do another favorites for the second half. So January was really good to me. I had a ton of 5-star reads, so again this one was a tough pick for me, but these ones have always stuck out in my head as favorites, so I'm excited to share them with you. So obviously I feel like this one's going to come as no shock, is All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson. This is a nonfiction novel about George and kind of what it was like to grow up and kind of own his own identity of being a black man and being a part of the LGBTQ plus community. This is one that I had to purchase because I listened to it on audio and it was fantastic, and I knew I was going to want a physical copy. I really want to go in and highlight and really take it in again because it was such a beautiful story and I cannot wait to read more by him. I think he's coming out with other memoirs and other things, so I'm excited for it all. Then I have Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson, which I feel like should also not really come as a shock. I loved this book. This book takes place where we're following Enchanted, and she really wants to be a singer, and we're following alternating perspectives where we know something really bad is happening, and she kind of gets in a really toxic relationship with her producer, and I was gripped, and I would love to reread this one because this one was fantastic. And Tiffany D. Jackson is definitely somebody who I feel like is a favorite author / will be a favorite author. This one I feel kind of not silly or stupid for putting it on here, but this was my first experience with this book, and I'm like beating myself up so hard that I didn't read this when everybody else was, but partially in a way it was kind of good that I didn't because I was able to be away from the hype a little bit. But that is The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas. I feel so stupid that I haven't picked this up sooner because this is fantastic. And I feel like at the time when it came out, it was a YA novel, and I was trying to get myself away from YA novels, and I just felt like it was going to be a story that I just wasn't going to care about, and that, like, I just had all these, like, stupid biases against it in terms of it being a YA novel, and I was trying to get out of YA at that point. And now, like, I'm, like, kicking myself because it's so good, and it was so worth it. This book, the movie adaptation, both are fantastic. Like I said, I just felt like I needed to make sure that I put this in here. Then we hit February. Where'd that come from? I feel like, I don't even know. It's been so long since I filmed, there's probably dust in here. So we've got A Princess in Theory by Alyssa Cole. This definitely had to make the list because not only did I read this book in the month of February, but I binged the entire series. I read the first 3 books in this original trilogy. I read the 2 novellas. All in the same month, and I never do that with series. So this one definitely speaks to it completely. We are following a woman who's living in America, and she keeps getting all these emails that are like, you are definitely a princess and you need to marry our king. And she's like, no, I'm not giving you my social security number and having you steal my identity. That's not happening. But really, she's supposed to be marrying this prince, and he comes to America to get her, and he kind of meets her under pretenses where they actually end up thinking that he's just a commoner and it is their romance. She's a woman in STEM. It's a fantastic series. I love them so much. This one's definitely my favorite out of all of them, and it's the first book, and if you love romance, you need to read this one. Then we've got Yellow Wife by Sadiqa Johnson, and this one doesn't leave you. This is a historical fiction novel that grabs you and does not let go. This is following a girl who she believes that when she is 18 that she is going to be released and freed, And unfortunately, something happens to her master that causes her to actually not be freed, and instead she gets sold to basically this like awful jail for slaves. And this man, the owner of this plantation and this jail, ends up essentially taking her as his wife. And it's really, really good, but it is extremely difficult to get through. There's a lot of trigger warnings for this one. So if you are easily triggered by certain things, definitely look up the triggers because there are a ton for this one. But if you are not as bothered, like you're going to be bothered, trust me, you're going to be bothered. But like if you can think that you can stomach it a little bit, it's definitely highly worth the read. The ending, I wanted a little bit more from it, but again, like I said, this is a book that just does not leave you after you read it. Then we've also got Longshot, which I don't own, which I need to change that very soon. This is the first book in another romance series, and I loved this one. This one was another one that was extremely difficult to get through. It does deal with some domestic violence. We are following a girl who has a chance encounter with this man, but unfortunately she is at this basketball tournament with her boyfriend at the time, and it turns out that her boyfriend and this chance encounter, they are actually rival basketball players, and it kind of follows their timeline from then through the future. And like I said, it is definitely a difficult book to get through, but it's definitely extremely good, and I really, really liked it. Then we hit March, and I've got two for March. We've got Hazed by Kandi Steiner. This is the 6th book in the Palm South University series, and I gave this one 5 stars. I love this series. The last book, the 5th book, didn't quite do it for me, but this one definitely brought it back up for me. We are about to hit the last and final book this summer, and I'm not ready for it. This is a sorority Greek life, college-aged story where we are following a bunch of members in the Greek life community, guys and girls. It does sound light and fluffy, but it does definitely hit some hard topics as well. So know that going into it. Again, something that you might want to look into trigger warnings for because it does get gritty at times. So it's a series that has always been my favorite. It's the series that got me started in loving Kandi Steiner. So obviously this one had to make the list. Then we have one that completely took me by complete surprise, and that is The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. I was not expecting to love this one as much as I did. I listened to this one on audiobook, and then I had to have a physical copy of it on my shelves. And this one is following a woman who goes to London. She's supposed to be there on an anniversary trip with her husband, but something happens that kind of causes her to go there by herself. And she goes, what's it called? Murking? Oh, why can't I say what it's called now? So she goes and she's like going through the dirt and mud, and she finds this apothecary bottle and she wants to know more about it. We're also following the past perspective of this apothecary and kind of why this bottle ended up where it did. I was expecting this to be extremely more feminist than it was, and then I was grateful that it wasn't as feminist as I thought it was going to be. Like, I thought it was going to be like this apothecary who was selling all of this potions just to kill men, but it was not that way at all. So I really appreciated that, and I really liked the story, and again, one that I will probably want to reread. I don't really reread, but like it's got rereadable ability for me, which is always a good sign. And then we move on to April, where I have 2. Again, we've got Float Plan by Trish Dollar. This is another one that I listened to on audio and then had to buy a physical copy because it just really stuck with me. We're following 2 characters. We're following Anna. Her fiance has recently just committed suicide, and she's trying to grieve. She's trying to figure out what to do with her life, and they always plan to take this sailboating trip. So she ends up trying to do the sailboat trip on her own. She makes it a certain length and realizes that she can't, so she ends up taking on this man to help her out. And it's their romance, but it's also trying to find yourself and trying to deal with grief. And so it deals with a lot of other things just besides the fluffy romance. But I loved the travel element. I loved being in the Caribbean. It was a really good story. Highly recommend this one. Obviously, I recommend all of them. They're all my favorites. Also, in April, I read Concrete Rose by Angie Thomas, which is the prequel novel to The Hate U Give, and this one was fantastic, although I want a prequel to the prequel or a sequel to the prequel because I want more of this story. In this story, we are following Maverick, who is the father of the girl in the first book. I'm blanking on her name all of a sudden. But we're following him as a teenager and what it was kind of like for him trying when he was in the gang, and he ends up becoming a father in this one, and following that journey with him. Again, I want a prequel to the prequel or a sequel to the prequel because this just, it was amazing, but I need more. And then we hit May, where I have 3 books. May was fantastic as well. There were just some months that, like, I just had a lot of favorites, which is always a good thing to say. So we've got The House on the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. I listened to this one also on audio, and if you were going to consume this in any fashion, I highly, 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 highly recommend the audio, because the audiobook for this one was fantastic. I laughed out loud with it. I cried with it. I got angry with it. I had all the emotions with it. This is one that I feel like has been super duper hyped over here on BookTube and on Instagram and everywhere, and I kept putting it off and putting it off. I bought it because I saw Riley Marie read it and really love it, and then it just sat on my shelf. I started to read it physically at one point, and then I put it down. Not for, like, because it was bad. I just, like, put it down and never re-picked it back up. And then I listened to the audio. I was like, this will be my chance to try to read it, and if I don't like the audio, then it's not for me. This was fantastic. I'm not a big fantasy reader, and this one was so good. We're following this world where there are special, so people with special powers and special abilities, and when they are orphaned, there's obviously orphanages for them. And we are following our main character, and he is somebody who goes to these orphanages to make sure that they're running smoothly, that they're running safely, and they're doing right by these children. And he decides if the orphanage is going to stay open or if he's going to close them. And he kind of just lives his life daily, daily, daily. I go to work, I go home, I eat, I go to bed, I come back, I go to work. Like, he's a very, like, run-of-the-mill type of guy. And one day they're like, we're going to put you on this special case. It's super top secret. Like, you can't tell anybody. You're going to this island. You're going to tell us. You're going to do this right up like you typically do on this place, because we haven't been able to get a truthful story out of this place. So we're sending you. He goes, and this has the most dangerous children in this orphanage. And you just fall in love with all of these kids and this world, and it has so much, like, social commentary, but in a way that's easy to consume and easy to understand, and just, I was blown away by this book. Blown away. Which I wasn't expecting, because normally with hyped books, I definitely don't feel that way typically. Then I also really, really enjoyed Miracle Creek by Angie Kim. This one was one that I, like, passed on Book of the Month when they first offered it, and I continued to pass. I kept seeing buzz all of a sudden really picking up for it recently within this past year. And again, I kept kind of passing it up, and I was like, you know what? I have room for it in my box this month. I think this is the one I'm going to get. And I picked it up, and I read it immediately, and I devoured it, and I loved it. This is a, like, legal thriller drama where we are following this family who, they have started this therapy session where it's kind of like a submarine where, like, you get put in it and they, like, deal with they change the air quality and the air pressure, and it's supposed to help different ailments and different disorders and disabilities. And one day it blows up and it kills 4 people that were in the submarine when it happens. And all eyes turn to a woman that was there who had a son in the tank, and we're following kind of her case of being tried for these murders, but also we're following the other perspectives of looking into what really happened, and it was fantastic. I'm really excited that I finally got to that one. Sometimes you just have to step out of your comfort zone, I guess. And then the last one for May is The Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Boulley. This one I listened to on audio. Apparently I really like audiobooks this year. I was never really a huge audiobook fan, but apparently this year I picked up some fantastic ones. There are a ton that didn't even make this list, but yeah. I hit some gold mines with some audios this year. So this is The Firekeeper's Daughter, and I listened to this one because I was doing a group read with Kendra from Kendra Loves Books. This is definitely one that I feel like I am totally happy that I went into it really knowing nothing. All I knew was it was about a girl who lives near a reservation, that she's not really a full member of the tribe because of certain circumstances. And that's all I knew. And I'm kind of glad that I didn't know much more. There's definitely some mystery in here, but there's also just great tribe representation and culture. And again, like I said, I don't want to talk too much about it because, like I said, I loved knowing nothing. If you'd like to know more, I'm sure I've talked about it in other videos where I've talked more about it but I just, for this favorites video, I'm just going to tell you, don't read the synopsis. Just go into this one knowing that you're going to get some romance, you're going to get some mystery, you're going to get some intrigue. You're going to get it all with this one. And then for June, I only had one because June was kind of a weird month for me. If you haven't watched my wrap up, please go do so because it was definitely an all over the place type of month. But I finished Arsenic and Adobo by Mia P. Peninsula. And this is the first book in a cozy mystery series. And I was totally blown away by it because I don't typically love cozy mysteries. I really like thrillers, things that keep you on your edge of your seat, but for some reason this one, I don't know if it was the combination of food or what, but I really enjoyed it. Was it the perfect best read? Probably not, but for me, it was just exactly what I needed right at the right moment. And we were following a girl who has come home after a recent breakup, and she's working at her family's restaurant. And this guy who is her ex-boyfriend has basically been writing terrible reviews for every restaurant in the city, and basically he's coming to write one for them as well. And while he's eating at the restaurant, he dies. And obviously eyes turn to her family for thinking that they possibly poisoned him, and it's her job to kind of try to figure out what really happened and clear her family's name. So it was fantastic. Cannot wait for the next book in the series. Hopefully Book of the Month offers it. If not, I'm definitely getting it somewhere else because I cannot wait to continue the series. So yes, those are my favorites for the first half of 2021. What were some of your favorites? There are definitely more that I really, really enjoyed, but obviously I couldn't share them all. But let me know some of your favorites. What are you looking forward to in the second half of the year? And I will see you guys really soon. Bye, everybody.